My Diane.
Hello and welcome to Long Live Hooky Street, the podcast where we rewatch and discuss every episode of Britain's most beloved TV comedy, Only Fools and Horses. I'm Heather and I'm joined from Denver, Colorado by my co-host and sister, Jenny. Say hello, dude.
Hello.
Today we are discussing Series 4, Episode 3, Hole in One. So grab 4 dozen bottles of Guinness and let's get started.
This episode aired on the BBC at 8 p.m. on Thursday, March 7th, 1985. Still following Top of the Pops. Viewing figures were down slightly this week to 13.4 million. I Know Him So Well by Elaine Paige and Barbara Dickson was still the UK #1 song at this time, and a new movie, The Prodigal, starring John Hammond, was the #1 movie at the UK box office this week. A few little interesting episode facts. This episode was the first to feature the brand new opening title sequence, which was created by the same designer that did the original, Peter Clayton. So Clayton arranged for new photographs to be taken of David Jason and Nicholas Lyndhurst, as well as new photos completely of Buster Merryfield, and these were added to the original masks and animation slides. So these opening credits would then be used all the way up until the 1996 trilogy, where new photos were used because of how much older the cast looked by that point. Hole in One was intended to be the series opener, and the location shooting was on day 2 when Leonard Pierce suffered his first heart attack, and this is why there are so many photos of the episode being filmed with Grandad and not Albert. So John Sullivan got the idea for this episode from, again, a true story. His dad's father had a genuine accident falling down a pub cellar which had been opened without caution. Since this happened in the 1920s or 30s, he received about £50 compensation, which was quite a lot for the time. He did it again and was successful, but got caught out the third time he tried it. It states in the Lovely Jubbly book that none of the original footage for the location shoots was used featuring Leonard Pierce. But this is contradictory to what is attributed to Kenneth MacDonald saying in the official Inside Story, where he says the shots of Mike looking up from the cellar are actually the ones where he was looking up at Leonard Pierce, not Buster Merryfield. So when they say featuring Leonard Pierce, maybe they just meant that this is not technically featuring him. But I don't have any way of being 100% sure that the way that the shots with Mike looking up are looking at Leonard Pierce. There's no way for me to be sure about that. I mean, we can't verify it with anybody now, can we? So
I think I have some evidence that it isn't, but you can carry on and I'll talk about it later.
Yeah, I think that too. Yeah, we'll discuss that later. So last few little bits of trivia. Hole in One was the first episode Buster Merryfield did the location scenes for. That first morning that he was called onto set, it was for this episode. So he was told to head over to the costume van and find something for Albert to wear. He and the costume designer quickly picked out the peak cap and the duffel coat in a great hurry with no research put into it at all. Which is funny since this is Albert's look that just became synonymous with his character. And this episode features the first mention of the full address at Nelson Mandela House, 368, and Albert's full name, Albert Gladstone Trotter. And as usual, I'll have a little more trivia to scatter throughout the episode, but shall we move on to the episode rankings, dude?
So our regular listeners will know by now, each week we reveal and compare our rankings for the episode, and prior to recording the entire podcast, we independently ranked all 64 episodes. So if you didn't already know that, then you are not yet one of our regular punters. So we would love for you to subscribe to the podcast. And we release a new episode every Saturday. So dude, what did you rank Hole in One out of 64?
Okay, my ranking for this episode is 20.
Wow. Holy shit. That's really high.
This episode is, obviously this series is the first to feature Albert, and because we grew up with Albert, I remember getting the VHS for this series and really just loving watching all the early Albert episodes like this one and Sleeping Dogs Lie stand out. Like, I know that it's, again, a one punchline thing if you watch it to the end, but I do think that it doesn't build up to the punchline as if that's the only funny part of the episode. You've got some great other characters in this. You've got, Mike and everything. And the way that Albert does the scene at the end as well, with where he explains his reasons, is very touching. And it kind of is the first episode that really bonds Albert to Rodney and Del. So I have really fond memories of this one, and I think it's a clever storyline and it's well written. Yeah, it's up there for me. How about you, dude? What's your ranking?
Well, my ranking for this one is 40.
Ah, okay. Well, that's the same as my big brother. I don't think 40 is a bad ranking.
40?
I know, you did that
I did
for my big brother, so you have to put it in there.
Well, no, I think this one is this one for me. Actually, I was trying to figure out sort of why maybe I put it a bit lower. And as you already mentioned, it is, I'm not as big a fan of the, the punchline ending kind of episodes, or not as big a fan for rewatchability, because I guess that's what I was ranking when I ranked my episodes, was rewatchability. But I do agree with you. There's a really nice touching moment at the end, but there's something a little bit off about this episode. I don't know if it's because it feels a bit morbid sometimes watching it, knowing that Leonard Pierce had filmed some of this and then he died in the middle of filming it. I don't know if that's what it is about this episode that makes me a little bit more reluctant to put it on. I don't know. There's just something, off. I can't explain that any better than I just did, really, about this episode to me. Aww. And I think it's not as strong as a lot of the other episodes in Series 4.
I'm sure that there are other people that agree with you. And, it is sad when you think about that fact that Leonard Pierce was filming it. Although, I can't remember if I put this in my notes or not, so I might end up saying it later, but they have both Ray Butt and John Sullivan said that the story ended up being more suited to the character of Albert because of his more active kind of, the way that he's more physical, whereas Grandad was just sitting in the chair all the time. So it is kind of hard to believe that he could throw himself down the cellar without hurting himself. Yeah,
I actually have some notes about that later when I do the breakdown about the difference between if Grandad's character had done this versus Albert's character. So I think that's kind of the main reason for me. But what about the IMDb ranking?
So it's halfway between, kind of a little bit lower. It's 32. So
okay,
almost this halfway between our two rankings, which totally makes sense because I think mine's probably slightly higher than most fans and yours is probably slightly lower. So, but let us know in the comments.
Yes, let us know what you think about this one.
Yeah, we've been really loving reading all the comments and we really want more people to get involved and tell us what they think of the episodes. So yeah, please do. And we read all of them and we try to respond as much as we can. But
yes,
do remember that we are in all of us, like both me and Heather, are in completely different time zones to the UK, so you might get responses at weird times.
Yeah, if you think our responses are a bit late or a bit early, that's probably why.
What do you mean it's a bit late? Okay, so if there's nothing else, shall we get started with the episode breakdown?
Okay, so we begin this episode at the flat. Rodney is having a cup of tea and Albert comes home. And some bills are posted and Albert posts them back through the door, which I always love as the opening. The amount of times I've wished I could do that. But obviously that wouldn't make a difference in real life. But it's just a really funny thing they put in there for Albert's character. Yeah. So Albert and Rodney talk about how they can't get anything from the corner shop on credit. And we basically find out that they are in debt. So throughout this conversation, Albert looks inside some boxes that are piled around the flat.
Must have seen him coming.
At that point, Del enters, looking annoyed. And I just want to say I love Del's dressing gown. It looks very snug.
Oh, yeah, it does.
Yes. I don't think... do we ever see him in this dressing gown again? I feel like we don't.
I think we do, but I feel like it's such a plain dressing gown for Del, right?
Yeah, I know he wears, more exotic ones. Obviously, the one he wore in the episode with Pauline. But...
yeah. I feel like we might, but let's keep an eye out for it. I don't know. Maybe we don't ever see
Okay, everyone on dressing gown watch from now on, everyone, please. Then we get a build-up of the conversation until we ultimately find out what Rodney has purchased.
Because today, Uncle Albert, owing to young Rodney's foresight and GCEs, while all them other plonkers down the market are selling woolly hats and thermal underwear, we're going to make a right killing. Do you know why we're going to make a killing? We ain't got woolly underwear. We've got suntan lotion. We ain't got just a little drop of suntan lotion. We've got 500 bloody quid worth of it.
So Rodney says,
I told you before, I bought it as an investment.
But we find out...
that 500 quid that you squandered on this stuff was the last of the company's capital.
Oh, and how was I supposed to know that?
How were you supposed to know that? You're the firm's accountant, you wally.
Del then says...
we've got nothing to sell and no money to buy with.
I have a question here. They still have a lot of furniture and random things around them, even in that shot when Del says that. And this is surely something that Del has encountered multiple times in his lifestyle. I mean, just the nature of his work, 1 week they're rich, the next week they're absolutely broke. So I find it hard to believe that Del can't think of something to sell just to get a little bit of money to tide them over. What do you think about that, dude?
Well, I mean, yeah, so they've deliberately made the flat a little bit more sparsely filled with stuff here, haven't they? I think that it's interesting because we haven't seen the Trotters at this point. You know, we have to assume that they go through ups and downs with stock and how much money they have, but we haven't seen them yet at the point where they have, no stock and no money to buy with. So this is just a different perspective, and obviously we have to, for the story purpose, put them in the position where they are desperate. Otherwise, Albert wouldn't have done what he did. Normally, Del's garage is full of stuff, and we do find out later, don't we, that they've always got something because he had the lesser watch the whole time. So
well, yeah, so that brings me to what I was going to say next. So Albert says,
What's in the van?
Nothing.
What's in the garage?
The van.
so I put, where is the lesser watch? That's exactly what I wrote.
I think ever since we've started the podcast, we keep saying, what about the lesser
Where's
watch?
the lesser
It's like,
watch?
Yeah, because Del's like,
true,
all
though.
the garage, like you had to move everything up from the garage. Like, so the lesser watch has essentially been there since the very beginning of time when Rodney started working for him. You could ask that question every episode, but just
You could do a whole series called Where is the Lesser Watch every single episode.
just for a laugh. Yeah, it's interesting. Where is the lesser watch?
Even in the next scene, we get Del talking about pawning his jewellery. So they do have options. It's just a bit strange that they act here like they have no options at all. That's why I'm a bit like, oh, okay. I wouldn't imagine that is the case.
I think he's just exaggerating. But also, yeah, it's interesting to say Del blames Rodney for not knowing that was the last of the capital. But I always figured Del has money that Rodney doesn't know about. I mean, what about losing streak? And,
And I'm surprised that Del gave Rodney 500 quid to go down the auction and like the whole lot. You'd imagine that he would have given him maybe 200 quid or something like that. And it's
That
strange
is
that Del
true.
wouldn't know what was on sale at the auction as well and had like an idea of what Rodney should be buying based on healthy competition.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It's just a bit of a
I mean, it's just a
poetic license
Yeah, it's just
sort
part-
of setup.
it's just part of the classic like goofiness of the Trotters. Yeah, Del should know not to let Rodney go to the auction on his own, but they saw him coming.
So now we get the beginning of, I guess, a running joke where Rodney calls Albert a jinx and blames him for their bad luck. I feel like Rodney does this quite a lot throughout the series. He kind of blames things on Albert and talks about Albert having like an aura about him that brings bad luck. So then we get Del saying,
Went down and ordered Grandad's headstone the other day.
and I assume all of this wasn't in the original script because obviously if Grandad had been saying this, Grandad's motive would have just been purely for the money, right? And as you said in the intro, talking about the rankings, I think you're right that in the end, this story ended up being better suited for Albert because he didn't just do it for money. He did it to get Grandad's headstone, which is something that wouldn't have been a motivation had it been Grandad's story.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe there's anywhere out there a way that you can see the original script to find out how they worked the motivation in. I guess Grandad may have not needed the motivation, nothing other than money. John Sullivan kept all the other episodes from now until the end of the series. They were written originally with Grandad in, but he had to change quite a few bits, and especially the dialogue, because it's very much suited to Albert's character, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, we do know that John Sullivan had to rework the remainder of the scripts in this series from this episode all the way up till the end to change the Grandad character to the Albert character. So we'll never be able to see those original scripts. We'll never know what Grandad was saying and what was written for Albert. But I don't think it's at any point in the rest of the series does it stand out as being, oh, that is something Grandad would say. It feels like he rewrote the character. You know, we'll talk about it in the next episode, but yeah, Grandad never used to steal from the bar and stuff. So like all of this stuff is all written in for Albert, and Albert's, like you said, Albert's character is more active and able to fall down the stairs and stuff. So
okay, cool. So just to sort of wrap up this scene. So we find out here that Albert has now been living with them for about 4 weeks, which is good because it gives us sort of the timeline and how long they've known him. So even they still don't know him very well, and we as the audience don't either. And that also, again, works well for this episode because if they knew him longer, and this is where I think about Grandad doing it, they'd have known this history if Grandad had done it. I think it would have been very difficult for them to not know. Grandad surely would have mentioned it or given it as a possibility for them to get some money in the past when they were hard up. So, yeah, I think, it would have not been that believable that they wouldn't have known about Grandad doing this. But with Albert, it's very believable. They have no idea about this history that he has. So, yeah, I think that's good. And then we end the scene with a joke where Albert suggests that Rodney become a toy boy.
I mean, Rodney can't even give it away, let alone flog it.
So that's all I have on that scene. Anything you want to add?
only other note is I wrote that Del mentions that the Grandad's headstone will be made from fiberglass, which is the same as Jones monument that he mentions in the Yellow Peril, and that is it.
Okay, lovely. So now we cut to outside the pub, and we see Del using CD on the mirror. And I actually don't understand what this represents. I'm not a driver. So he's already got tax disc impost written. So what does CD mean?
Okay, yeah. So CD stands for, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this correctly, but it stands for Corps Diplomatique. So those are like special vehicles that have, immunity, privileges and immunity. So it means they don't traffic laws don't apply to them, or taxes. So it's like, so basically you don't have to worry about where you park most of the time, or worry about tax and stuff.
Yeah, you see, I've never understood that joke, so I have no idea about that. I would have thought most people wouldn't know about that, so it's interesting it got such a big laugh. I wouldn't have thought that was common knowledge.
I think it's probably just, because like normally they're registered to like foreign embassies and like diplomatic missions and stuff. So yeah, I don't know if maybe people in the 80s understood that more. As a kid, I had no idea what that meant. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I still don't know. I said I just had to ask you, so
But you never drove either, so yeah.
No, that's true. But even if you drive, I wouldn't have thought many people would know that. For me, this entire scene always looked a bit strange. I can't really put my finger on it. Maybe it's something to do with the quality of the camera changes from shot to shot, but there's something strange about the movement of the characters in this episode. They almost look a bit sped up in this part of the episode. I can't explain it. I don't know if you noticed anything like that, dude, as well.
I mean, this scene specifically to me goes back to what you said at the beginning about feeling a little bit weird, because I do know that these were the scenes that were shot with Leonard Pierce. So they had to redo them. And I think you'll know the vibes of this. Like whenever we fuck up on the podcast and we have to record something for the second time, it's different and weird.
Yeah.
Like you take away that like organic kind of thing. And not only did they have to do it again, they had to do it again with a new character, knowing that Leonard had died. So there's probably just a vibe about it that we're picking up on. I don't know.
I wonder if anyone of the punters watching this episode feel the same way about that particular sequence. And you're right. I do know about the granddad was the one in the shots. It's his shoulder talking to Mike. Rumor, if you like, or theory, or I'm not sure what you call it. Observation. I'm not sure. But there's just something about this bit that feels off. That's the best way to describe it, I guess. So Rodney suggests that they sell the van and get something more useful.
Like a bus pass.
And Del is not amused. So they see barrels of beer being shipped into the cellar of the Nag's Head. And Del and Rodney walk ahead, and Albert stops when he sees Mike in the cellar and asks him,
"How's that deep fried, Del soldier?"
After Del and Rodney hear the question that Albert has asked Mike, they run back over to get Albert as though they're trying to get him out of the situation. But they also look surprised to see Mike. Like they've just been caught, but they knew Mike was down there because Albert was just talking to him. So I didn't really get that. It's like they were trying to escape from the situation by grabbing Albert and trying to run away, but they knew Mike would see them if they went over to Albert. So just a bit, the reaction was a bit strange there. And Del and Rodney scold Albert, and then they head into the pub. So just one more thing about the over-the-shoulder thing that I mentioned about why I don't think it is Leonard Pierce is because you can, if you look very carefully, you can see in the top left corner of the shot a tiny bit of Albert's beard.
So I tried to look too, but I think the quality on my computer is not good enough that I could see that. But I tried to look and I thought it looks like Albert's duffel coat. But yeah, I think this is a really interesting one because like I said before, in the official Only Fools and Horses storybook that I have, it says that it's Kenneth MacDonald that says that the shot is left in the episode. But the way that it's worded, it's quite possible that he might not have meant it was left in the episode. He might just say that he remembers filming it with him. So, and then it says in Lovely Jubbly they didn't use any of the original location footage. And another thing that we'll note later in this series is they ran out of film, I think. Like the last episode had to be recorded on video because they ran out of budget. So then that would indicate that they did keep some of the original footage maybe to save money. So there's just no way to know for sure.
Yeah, I would say I'm 90% sure that is definitely Buster Merrifield because of the tiny little bit of white beard in the top left corner. But again, punters, have a look. Tell us what you think about this. Maybe you've got some information about it.
Maybe somebody in the Only Fools and Horses Appreciation Society or one of the fans knows for a fact about this because I wasn't sure and I really don't want to misstate anything. And also, another note I put here is that the cellar shot was actually the very first shot that Buster Merrifield filmed for Only Fools and Horses ever. Like that day that he was called onto set, this was his shoot. And he said there was no script. He wasn't given a script because he'd only been cast the day before, as we remember. He was basically given a piece of paper with 4 or 5 lines of dialogue on it. As soon as he shot this shot, he went straight back off to Windsor to do his pantomime matinee. So he was literally just thrown into this. And I think he's great because he's exactly Albert in this shot. It's seamless. But yeah, you have to wonder, don't you? Did they just shoot the up shot? Because setting up the shot maybe is time consuming. So maybe they didn't shoot the down shot because of that. So that again falls into the argument for, yes, this is the Leonard Pierce shot. Yeah, the only other note I had on that scene is that Albert is bundled in the back of the van like they always used to do with Grandad. So
yeah,
it's kind of subtle. They're just basically showing that Del and Rodney are treating Albert like they did Grandad. But I feel like straight away you're seeing a difference because they didn't bring Grandad out with them every day and they didn't bring him down the Nag's Head during the day. Grandad occasionally came to the Nag's Head for special occasions, but he was not with them on their day-to-day activities. So
yeah, true.
Albert's starting to become more part of a trio.
Yeah, I know, I agree with you. I think maybe, as you mentioned, Albert's character's a bit more active, so maybe he suggested he comes with them and he doesn't want to stay sitting in the flat.
Yes.
Whereas Grandad was probably a bit more content to do that. So.
Right. So again, suits Albert's character more because Grandad would have just been hanging out with them that morning at the pub. It doesn't really make as much sense, does it?
So as you mentioned, they're in the pub next, and Maureen, my favourite barmaid, is bringing up some supplies, and I think I've discovered even more why I love her. She has a line here where she says,
"Ain't customers stupid, eh?"
That might be why, yeah.
I have to say that the amount of times I used to think that when I worked in retail. I used to work in Argos. Anyone who's ever worked in Argos on collection will feel my vibes.
Me too, and I used to work at Holland and Barrett.
Yeah, you were there all the time, I know. So yeah, it's, I always used to think that in my head. Yeah, the Trotters still have enough money for a drink in the pub, I wrote. Doesn't everyone always have enough money for a drink in the pub? No matter how broke they are, they always find that money. I guess that's the quintessentially British thing. And Rodney is trying to help them out of their situation by doing an equation.
We have to find a way of making money out of nothing.
And you had to use ink to come to that conclusion? Stone me, Rodney. A Millwall fan could have worked that out.
Maybe someone who knows football can explain this to me, because we have had 2 digs at Millwall now. We have the one in Big Brother that Grandad says about Millwall winning the cup, and also we have this one as well. Is Millwall a particularly terrible team?
Well, I mean, it could be that John Sullivan himself hated Millwall, but don't you think, like, this is the note I put, Del's dad is a Millwall fan, so that might be why he said that. Because the other quote insinuates that Reg said Millwall would win the cup. So when he says a Millwall fan, he's talking about his dad, and he thinks his dad's stupid, right? That's what I thought.
Yeah, true. And it's Grandad who's insulting his son in that quote in Big Brother, right? Whereas Del's insulting his dad in this one. Yeah,
they're both like digs, but yes, they both insinuate that Millwall is terrible. So yes, I guess John Sullivan hated Millwall himself. Or maybe just in London, Millwall is regarded poorly. Yes. Please let us know.
Yeah.
You guys know we don't know anything about football.
Yeah, we're not football fans, Jenny.
I mean, I do know more than Heather. I went to a lot of
I know
games,
nothing about football at all.
Heather knows absolutely nothing, and since I've been gone from the UK for such a long time, although my husband watches the Premier League.
Rodney and Del argue quite loudly in the pub about money, and Albert stops them by saying,
"Bloody money. Whether you've got too much of it or not enough, it always causes trouble."
I would just like to say I completely agree with that statement.
Yeah, that is a really great line. And it shows Albert's wisdom very quickly.
Yeah, very true. He does seem quite wise, Albert. That's very true.
Don't worry. Something will turn up, you'll see.
And I guess this is a hint.
Yeah, positive as well.
Yeah, and I guess this is a hint to what Albert is about to do as well. So Del says, after Albert leaves...
Well, that's it, isn't it? I'm going to have to pawn all the jewellery again.
So again, implying that he has done this many times in the past when they've needed money. And this is what I think made me think... Do you remember when we reviewed Cash and Curry that I said he pawned his jewellery? Or I thought he pawned it, and you said he thought he sold it, which actually I guess there's not a huge difference between selling and pawning stuff.
Yeah, it can be selling it, can't it? Because if you pawn it, someone else can buy it, right? I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True. So yeah, similar. But yeah, that's why I think I thought about that. And then Del blames Rodney again for holding him back in life. So this is a conversation that we get several times over the course of the series.
I mean, when Mum died, I should have had you put in care. I would have been someone by now.
During the argument, we hear bangs and crashes, and they worry it's the deep fryer. So they begin to leave when Maureen appears and says,
It's your Uncle Albert!
What about Uncle Albert?
He's fallen down our cellar, quick!
Falling down the cellar.
So any more notes on that scene, dude?
I did note that Albert's having rum again, which he had in the last episode, right? So now it's already been established that rum is his drink, and it becomes
his drink,
large
yeah.
navy rum later. But Buster Merrifield was actually a teetotaler, so every time he's drinking rum, he's drinking blackcurrant.
Yes, I was going to say.
Yeah,
It'll be
which
something like...
I think
thought
it's
tea,
quite
maybe.
well known. No, tea. Tea doesn't look like rum. Or does it? I mean, it could.
Depends on the colour of the tea.
I wrote this here only because I personally didn't know, so I looked it up, because hock is another way to say porn.
Honestly, these rings, they know more about Ock than a German wine taster.
Yeah, so hock is another way of saying porn. And when he's talking about it in the terms of a wine taster, hock is a historical British term for German white wine.
Yes.
Specifically those from the Rhine region, I wrote. It originated as a shortened version of Hockheimer, referring to wine from the town of Hochheim am Maine. But yeah, I didn't know any of that. I never knew what he meant by that. I guess the simple way to look at it is hock just means porn. Like it's another way of saying porn.
After they run out the pub, they're in the cellar, and Del and Rodney arrive, and the first person they see is Mike with an injured neck.
I just looked up and there was Uncle Albert plummeting towards me.
Mike explains that Uncle Albert's on the other side of the room,
How the hell did he get over there?
He hit the plank and bounced.
which I always conjures up a really funny image when I hear that line. Just picture Buster Merrifield like flying across the room. Maybe like in The Mask when Jim Carrey jumps on that thing and goes "Bee" in the middle of the Cuban Pete song.
Yeah.
So there's a funny line here where Rodney asks Albert if he's all right, and he says,
I'm a bit shaken and dazed, Rodney.
Yeah, it's probably jet lag.
and Albert plants the idea in Del's head.
Fancy leaving an open cellar door unguarded. Oh, good mind to sue the brewery.
Yeah, put your arm around Rodney. Sue the brewery.
So obviously Albert's plan is being hatched here. This was his plan all along. And Del says,
He might have hit his head and got percussion.
so we get another Delism here. There's quite a lot of these. We could probably do an entire list of these by the end of Only Fools and Horses, all the Delisms. And then they try to make the scene look worse than it is. So I think this is quite funny. All of the things that they are trying to talk about. Albert's hat is still on, things like that. And then Del tells Rodney to call their solicitor, Solly Atwell. And Rodney says,
Solly Atwell's our solicitor.
Yeah.
Bloody hell, he's more bent than the villains.
so I love the fact that Del and Rodney have a dodgy solicitor as well. It's just perfect. Totally suits them. And then we get a great line at the end of the scene where Del says,
Uncle Albert, did I hear you groaning in pain?
No.
Well, why not? Come on.
yeah, any notes on that scene?
No, I only wrote Gregory is obviously it means neck. It's because it's a shortened form of Gregory Peck, the actor.
Neck.
Yeah,
I see.
So that's
Right,
all I
yes.
wrote for this scene. I do love this scene though, and the percussion line makes me laugh so much.
Yeah, it's very funny, that scene, and the panic and Del reacting the way that he does to Albert lying on the floor. yeah, it's
Yeah.
brilliant. So, but I do wonder, because obviously Albert trained to fall without hurting himself, but did he train if he bounced across the room to fall without hurting himself as
Well,
well?
all I know about falling without hurting oneself is, you don't jar anything in particular. So bouncing and rolling is all part of how you do it. So yes, that does make sense.
Oh, okay.
If he fell at a certain angle and rolled and went on and bounced himself across the room, that reduces the amount of impact. So it does make sense.
I mean, he's got glass all over him as well, over his front.
Yeah.
When they go over to him. So again, I mean, that having glass on the floor and stuff and having broken glass, I can't believe he still didn't hurt himself in some way. But yeah, obviously for the plot.
Again, yeah,
to work.
just can't imagine Grandad being able to do that though, can you?
No.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. So we go back to Nelson Mandela, and Solly is there with them having a meeting, and he tells them, unfortunately, there's nothing wrong with Albert,
He must have landed on something soft.
Yeah, he did. The landlord.
which is a great start to the scene. And then we find out that the brewery has offered to settle out of court for £2,000. Now, this annoys me a little bit. Albert here should have known that this was a really good offer, considering how many times he's done this. And we find out earlier some of the sums that he received were nowhere near this. And he does tell Del to take the money.
Yeah, he tells him.
He doesn't push it. And he really should have, because he should have known that there was a chance if they took this to court that all of the stuff from the past could come out. So I really think this was the time that Albert should have said, guys, I didn't really fall. This is something I've done to get money in the past, and this is a great amount of money. Let's just take the $2,000. Like, clearly that would have been the smart thing to do in that moment.
Yeah, I agree. But I think also this does highlight how Del is greedy. And I know, obviously he couldn't have took the money, because if he did, obviously there wouldn't be a story. But yes, I agree. If there were a good time to say it, now would have been it. But I do think Albert's very encouraging. Take the money, Del. Like, I think he doesn't know Del well enough maybe at this point to know that he can be honest, but he ought to, because you can see the way that Del is embellishing the story and lying. So yeah, maybe he should have just told him. You're right.
Yeah, exactly. It was, they scold him for this in the end of the episode, but yeah, like him letting them go through with this and putting themselves in jeopardy was not a very nice thing to do, really. It could have gone very badly for all of them. They could have all ended up in prison.
Would £2,000 would have got them back on their feet, wouldn't it?
Oh, so, yeah. £2,000 would have been great, I mean, Del was upset with Roddy for spending £500, and that's, 4 times the amount. So, yeah. So Solly lays out a way that they can get a huge settlement, psychological injuries. Solly tells them about a case in the US, I was thinking of you, where someone got 30 million because the guy had
claimed the accident had ruined his sex life.
At that rate, we'll get £1.75.
He shouldn't have compared it to America, because obviously America's a very litigious place. Yeah.
I mean, Jenny's told me so many stories since she moved there about suing and all the ridiculous things that you can sue for in America. And obviously, if you've got very good lawyers, they can, I mean, I don't know. Maybe the UK is like that these days. I'm not sure.
I don't think that you really have a leg to stand on a lot of the time in the UK. So.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not really sure the major differences between the legal systems. So again, if someone knows, maybe they can explain it all to us. We'll read it, we promise. So Solly lays it on thick here.
An active man struck down by the thoughtless action of this mammoth witch corporation. And most distressing of all, losing the use of his legs. Sit!
This is obviously very theatrical, but I do think it's very well done by the actor who plays Solly. I'm guessing you know who that is, dude.
Yeah, so Solly was played by a British actor whose name is Colin Jevons, and he has a massive list of credits. Yeah, he's a very seasoned actor. He's actually still alive right now. He's 95 years old. It looks like he stopped acting in the mid-90s, but yeah, his list of credits on IMDb is very, very long.
Yeah, he's brilliant. Solly's a character I would have liked to have seen again, actually, at some point, but obviously we don't really go to court again with the Trotters at any point.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, everyone knows the dodgy lawyer character or dodgy solicitor character is very popular. It's kind of like Saul Goodman now. Like, he could have had his own series.
True. Now, this is something, again, I'm not sure how this works, but Del dictates that he wants the high courts, and
I don't know,
you get to choose which court you get when you put a case in, especially something like this. I mean, this is a compensation case. You ain't going to get the high courts for this, surely.
No, it's just a civil matter.
Yeah, exactly. So that's hilarious that Solly's able to do that, because they all have wigs and stuff, and they are in the high court when it goes to trial. And the scene ends with Solly asking for witnesses.
Oh no, see, there weren't no witnesses.
Will 10 do?
Lovely.
So I ask here, wouldn't Mike be a witness? Right?
He was in court. You don't know if they called him up.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of got this question in the next scene, but which side is Mike on? Because Mike works for the brewery, so he wouldn't want the brewery to have to pay out, right? Because that would put him in a liable situation. But then he goes there with his mates, and he seems to be kind of rooting for the Trotters to win. So I'm not really sure.
Well, yes, another factor about that is Mike's happy to steal from the brewery, and who's a pretty boy. Also, Mike was not the one who opened the cellar door, right? It's the delivery people. Yes. Mike works for the brewery, and Mike got injured. So wouldn't Mike be suing the brewery too?
Yeah, I'm not sure about his involvement in this. You're right.
Yeah.
Sue the brewery. So yeah, I wasn't sure. Maybe someone again can comment on that. And what about other notes, dude, for this scene?
You said everything I was going to say, just that Del gets too greedy, and Solly should have advised him as well to take the $2,000.
Yeah, $2,000. I'd have taken that for something like this, where he's not even injured. I mean, you're pushing it already, aren't you?
Yeah, this just shows what happens when it's like deal or no deal. But yeah, the extra hassle of going through all of that and like risking it. Obviously, it didn't pay off for them. It could have, I suppose. But like you said,
I guess they would have been in a bit of debt as well afterwards, because they would have had to pay Solly a legal fee to do all that.
Well, it sounded like he was going to get defrocked, so I don't know if they did.
Even so, I'm sure there would have been some legal fees they'd have had to pay for that. So
I don't know.
We go to court, and we are already in full swing here, and Rodney's already on the stand being questioned by the defence. And Rodney has lied that he was a witness outside when it happened. Now, I've got to say, I don't necessarily buy that Rodney would do that, to be honest. I think Rodney would be too nervous.
It doesn't fit his morals, does it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said he has more morals than Del, and I think he would know how serious an offence it would be to lie in court. So I don't know if I buy that Rodney would have done this. I think it's a bit, but anyway. So he does some funny bits though here when he's asked how Albert fell, and he shows them. He just kind of leans to the side, which is very funny. Then of course we go into this extremely scripted bit that he's obviously been told to say by Del.
There was no warning notice. There was no guardrail either. Yes, I can remember thinking to myself at the time, that's rather dangerous. Someone could fall down there.
You can actually see Del rolling his eyes in the background when Rodney's saying this, probably because of the stilted way that he's saying it. But Del did tell him to say it. He's literally mouthing it to him in the court. So, yeah, I just think it's funny. Rodney totally messing up the delivery. And we end with...
What did he look like?
Horrible.
So, yeah, I do enjoy Rodney's testimony. I think that's very funny.
I always love when Nick Lyndhurst does that kind of like fake kind of speaking. Like, I don't know, that's scripted. Yeah, he does it in Miracle of Peckham as well. And to Hollenbach, like with the steady on Del, think of the profit margin.
The profit margins. Yeah. He's very good at playing a bad actor, isn't he? Yeah, I guess that's the best way to say it. Yeah, he's very good.
Yeah, he's really good at it. Yeah, that's all I had for that little bit.
Okay. Cool. And then so next Del is on the stand and he's being questioned, and of course he lays it on thick, as you would absolutely expect.
Yeah, look, I saw it all, your worship. Utter negligence, a complete disregard for public safety.
Then Del talks about the change in Albert after the accident. And I'm wondering, how long ago was this accident meant to have been at this point?
Yeah, I don't know. Mike's still got his bad neck. I mean, this is another thing about court. Again, let us know if you know more about this. But in the US, like if something happened, you got to wait 6 months to get into court.
Yeah. I'd imagine you wait a long time.
Again, this is all just like not non-realistic, and also it's all mid-80s, so I have no idea if this is realistic or not. It doesn't need to be realistic, but yeah, it does seem funny that they were able to get into court that quickly.
Yeah, because if this was meant to be like soon after the accident, then all of this stuff that he's talking about, sort of the things he's observed from Albert that he can't do anymore, it sounds like it's over like 6 months he's observed it, and it's only
maybe it's
weeks?
Supposed to be a couple of weeks. Yeah, that makes sense.
So we get a joke that hits very differently now.
What, I used to call him the Jimmy Savile of Peckham.
Oh dear.
I would not want to be called that.
Wouldn't want to be called that now, would you?
That is supposed to be a compliment.
I know. It's referring to his fitness, obviously. Right. Yes, but now it hits very differently. So, also followed by a joke that I always remember for some reason. I guess it's because it's silly, but it's funny.
He is like the Olympic flame. It never goes out, your worship.
And the defence asks about the gradual loss of feeling in his legs. And that's what I said again. I wonder how long ago this was meant to have happened, because gradual loss of feeling in your legs, that sounds like a long period of time that it's been happening over. So, yeah. And then Del finishes with...
The worstest thing of all, your honour, is these sudden bouts of amnesia. You know, they have led to him having some very nasty falls.
I fail to see the connection. How can amnesia cause one to fall?
He keeps forgetting he can't walk.
There's some great forgetting jokes in the scene, I've heard.
Yeah.
Amnesia and forgetting jokes. So, yeah. And then Del is dismissed. So is there anything about Del's testimony you wanted to comment on?
I just have notes on who played the two, who played the judge and Mr. Gerard here.
Okay, sure. Do you want to jump in with that?
Mr. Gerard, who's the guy that attacks Albert, I guess, is the prosecution
right?
lawyer. Yeah, so he is played by Andrew Turrell, who had previously worked with Ray Butt and John Sullivan on the other show that he had that was very successful at this time, which was Just Good Friends. And the judge was played by Dennis Ramsden, who died in 2018, and he was 99 years old. He had a lot of acting credits to his name, but he was also in an episode of It Ain't Off Op Mom. I've been practicing.
You got it, dude.
Got it.
Well done. What about the defense lawyer? Do you know who that is, or no information?
I didn't write his name down.
Okay, you don't care about him.
Yeah, I don't know why. I do care, but to be honest, like they look really similar, the two guys, and I was a little bit confused whose pictures were whose. I know that one's defense and one is
yes. I mean, it's the voice, isn't it, for the prosecution that you remember because of the delivery of the maybe you were the same Albert Gladstone Trotter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was going to say also that my when I was watching Coronation Street, which I don't watch anymore, by the way, in case, because Heather keeps mentioning Coronation Street.
Yes, I mean old Coronation Street. I'm not watching new Coronation Street.
Because Coronation Street, got really bad, I think, personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, let us know if you feel the same way.
Comment below.
Yeah, I even signed up to get BritBox here so I could watch it, which was like $10 a month for me to pay for. And I quit because I just found myself not watching Coronation Street anymore. And I was watching Only Fools and Horses on there, and it was the UK Gold cuts. So there was too many edits for me. So I got rid of it. But yeah, so anyway, back when I was watching Coronation Street about a year or so ago, my husband was like, do you guys really wear those wigs in court? Like, because he thought it was like a joke or something that in English courts they wear those wigs. And I was like, no, they really do wear them.
They really do.
But like,
not that I've been in a real court, but yes, I know that they do.
But then when I was watching this scene, I was thinking these two lawyers look so similar with their wigs on. Like, I can't tell the difference between them. So, yeah, that was the only reason I told that whole story. But it is funny to Americans that we wear those wigs in court.
It's pretty funny to me, really, that we do as well.
Yeah. I mean, because I personally have, like, a little bit of a fear of wigs. It's not fear, but I just hate, like, fake hair and stuff.
That's a real phobia, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know what it's called, but yeah, people are afraid to wear wigs. I always have to check in with the students when they're playing a character that needs a wig, if they have that, before they sign up to play that character.
It's horrible. Just the idea of, like, the itchiness on my head. Like, I don't know.
After Del is dismissed, Solly seems to think that they could be getting £10,000, which I don't really understand why they think it's going so well, but anyway. So Albert is called, and Del and Rodney freak out a little bit.
Any awkward questions? He just claims loss of memory.
Lots of memory? Knowing him, he'll forget.
So there we go. Second memory joke. We've got another one coming up. So the prosecution lays into Albert, and we end up with this sequence where every line begins with the maybe you are the same, but there's a little bit of build-up before that. So there are a couple of great lines here that I just want to highlight.
Have you ever suffered with amnesia before?
I can't remember.
Third memory joke, but very funny. Also, he mentions that he was on the Isle of Wight.
Hardly overseas.
You want to try walking it, pal?
I love that line.
And I love David Jason's reaction to it as well, because it obviously shows his reaction to that line. And yeah, it's true. It is very true. That's something that I'd imagine Dad saying. I don't know why. That line really makes me think of Dad. And it's that sarcasm. And then we get to the reveal where the prosecution asks,
would you tell the court what this training consisted of?
Jumping off of things.
Jumping off of things. In other words, learning to fall without injuring oneself.
So the prosecution lays out every case that Albert has ever fallen down cellars and gotten compensation. And I have to wonder how no one has noticed this before, given how many there are. I think they say there's 15 known cases when they come out of the court in the next scene. And I cannot believe that nobody has pointed this out before this day. Because they even have a nickname for him, the insurance, the Ferret. So he's known to be doing this. So how on earth has nobody pulled him up on this before?
Yeah, I mean, they say that he settles out of court almost every time, right? Is that what did they say?
No, he says those are the known cases. How about all the times that there's been like a backhand and they've settled out of court, like Del says something along those lines in the next scene. So these are the ones that went to court, presumably.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the next scene. The only note I have for this one is who Tony Jacklin is, because I bet you don't know, right? I don't know.
I put that as the last note, yeah. So let me just, one more thing I just wanted to say is I think the facial expressions of David Jason and Nick Lyndhurst and the actor who plays Solly when the prosecutor's laying in and into Albert and saying all the cases, their facial expressions are hilarious in the background. Like, even though they're slightly blurred, I just absolutely love watching their faces. It's so funny.
Especially David Jason when he's in the background of the lawyer. And you can just see that really shocked face and just looking back and forth between them as they list all of them out.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's a really good setup. And then, so we end the scene with the line,
It's a bloody nightmare, Rodney. It's a bloody nightmare. He's been down more holes than Tony Jacklin.
and I asked, who is that? So tell us who that is.
Yeah, I didn't know either. Again, a sports reference. Tony Jacklin was a British golf champion.
Okay.
There is so many to me. I think they must fall in the rest of the series. There's lots of other sports references from the 80s that I never got. And as I'm looking them up, I'm like, okay, yeah, now it makes sense. But I feel like most people just know who all these people are. I think this is just us. Yeah, Mum and Dad obviously always did. Dad always would laugh at stuff. And I was always like, yeah, he must know who that is. Like, I think probably because we were little kids when we watched this. Why would we know a British golf champion when we were little kids? So,
of course.
Makes sense.
And also, it's not like we're massively into sports either. So it's like,
Yeah. I was just reading David Jason's newest autobiography, and he says in that book that, like, he doesn't think anything in Only Fools and Horses dates the show. He feels like it has, like, forever longevity, and I agree with that in lots of ways. But little jokes like this do date it, because quite possibly a lot of people watching it with a modern eye wouldn't know who an 80s golf champion was, maybe, unless they just happened to be into sports. So
I think pop culture references always date things, and there are a lot of references. We've spoken about them in the previous episodes. You talk about the references to the children's TV of the 80s and stuff.
And of course he means like the show itself, like the core of the show, the elements of family and loyalty and all that. Of course, nothing dates timeless. That. But yeah, there are quite a lot of jokes that, as we've already seen, that we need to look up the meaning of. Things about commercials and adverts, and like sports and bands and stuff. So yes, there's quite a lot of stuff that might go over your head. I mean, it doesn't matter, because I mean, I used to laugh at that line just because of the delivery. I never knew.
Oh yeah, exactly. That's true.
Yeah. And the only other note I had is I really love Albert's line.
1 minute I was walking along, on my way to post my entry form with a Krypton Factor.
Again, another reference that could date it. Now, I used to love the Krypton Factor, but it went off the air. The Krypton Factor.
I loved the Krypton Factor.
But the only thing I loved about the Krypton Factor was the only round that I could really enjoy, because all the others were too intellectual for me, and that was the obstacle course, which I used to love watching.
I agree that the obstacle course was my favourite, but I did just love the Krypton Factor. I really like the one where they have to build the model out of like those clear plastic pieces as well.
Yes. Yeah. And Sooty and Co. spoofed the Krypton Factor once as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we go to outside the court, the final scene, and Del and Rodney come out and they are furious.
I mean, the only hole he hasn't fallen down is the black one in Calcutta.
So we hear Albert's squeaky wheel approaching on his wheelchair, and Del asks,
all right, come on. How many pubs, off-licences and drinking clubs have you done in your time?
So Albert explains that the first time it happened was genuine, but he didn't hurt himself because of his training, so he thought,
this is handy. So whenever me and your granddad was hard up for a few bob, I'd go and fall down an hole.
And I love that he puts him with Grandad here, because we didn't get any mention, obviously, when Grandad was alive about his history with his brother Albert. As you said, George is mentioned, but we don't know anything about them growing up together. And I think it's really nice that this kind of establishes that as well, the relationship that Grandad had with Albert. So we also find out here, as I mentioned earlier, that the insurance companies nicknamed him the Ferret. Yep. So again, how did he get away? How did he get compensation so many times from the insurance companies? So Rodney explains all the consequences for him and Del and Solly. Mm-hmm. And I've got to say, from what he says, I thought it would be worse, because none of them got arrested and charged, which they easily could have, because they just straight up lied in court.
Yeah, I think they just add this little bit just to show that there was, like, they didn't just get away with it. But yes, I think that in reality, the consequences would have been worse than this. But yeah
they'd have gone down, I think, for at least a couple of months for that. So yeah. So here we get what Jenny mentioned at the beginning of the episode was is a touching moment where Albert explains,
but you two have been good to me these past few weeks, and I wanted to get some money to, well, repay you. And I wanted to get your granddaddy's headstone.
So yeah, this moment is so touching. And when Albert says,
he was my older brother, Del. When I was a kid, he used to look after me.
We actually get a close-up of Del and Rodney when he says that, and you can really see, if you focus on Rodney, how much he's relating to that, because I think he feels the same way about Del.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's really lovely. So I think Rodney can appreciate even more than probably Del can Albert's motivation for that, because Rodney's also been raised by Del, and he probably feels he hasn't really repaid him enough, which we do see again in Time in Our Hands when he buys him the rolls. Del and Rodney forgive him which is lovely. And you can actually see that this is exactly how they probably would have treated Grandad if he'd said this as well. So again, it's that warmth and that sense of family, and then in the next second it's the arguing, the bickering, and the sort of treating each other like crap, which again is the heart of the show, really, isn't it? Because then you get the comedy and you also get the heart. So I think there's a part of Del that actually admires Albert a little bit for this scheme here, where he says,
"Come on, Rodney, let's get Ironside home."
Which again, I don't understand what Ironside is.
Yeah,
but,
I didn't think you would either, and I didn't, so I looked that up. The reference to Ironside is from a TV show from, it says here online, 1967. So, starring Raymond Burr, Navy veteran, widower, and veteran of 25 years of police service, was forced to retire from the department after a sniper's bullet to the spine paralyzed him from the waist down, resulting in his reliance on a wheelchair. So, the nickname is because Albert is in a wheelchair.
He's in the wheelchair. Yeah, I see. You're talking about dating things. My God, I wouldn't have a clue who that was and what that was. No. So, yeah, I think when he says that line there, you can see that he has kind of a smirk. So, he's obviously like, oh, you little trickster. Yeah. Like,
nicknames, basically. So nicknames starting, because you have to get Albert from the point of being a stranger to being his close relative that he can be kind of mean to, because they need to get that trio back. And this episode does that, and it does it very quickly, and it does it very well. Like I noted here at the end, this is the first time that Del calls him Uncle Albert, right? And just by calling him that, it gives them that warmth, because he's really angry with him at first. He listens to an emotional side of the story, but he also realizes that he's a trotter and he did something kind of bad, but it was for the family. And he immediately sees that and he becomes part of the family, and he calls him Uncle Albert, and then they start fighting. So it's the trotters, basically. You've just reestablished the trotters.
Don't worry about it, Uncle Albert.
Yeah, and actually that line, I didn't just highlight it, but you can see with the way that David Jason delivers it, he chooses to use that word very carefully. Like there's a pause before he says it. So you're right. It's almost like it's an initiation word into the family.
Yeah.
And it's lovely. I agree with you. So yeah, the dynamic of the characters is being established here. That was the last note. And just to highlight the line.
Why am I pushing you? You can walk, you lazy old sod.
So again, you could imagine him saying that line to Grandad, no problem. So yeah, that's everything I had for this episode. Anything you want to add, dude?
I mean, I guess I'll just fast forward to T for 3 when Del does exactly the same thing and pretends he can't walk. So Del does do this in the future. And then the last note that I had was, we will be referring to the dates mentioned in this episode when we do the summary at the end of the series about continuity, because he does mention a couple of things here that probably don't add up, which is all the dates of Albert's known claims happened after 1940, which would have been, and he said during the war, because he said he'd already trained how to fall, right? But then it says later that Albert and Grandad fell out over Ada, which he met Ada before the war, because Albert says they broke up when he went away to war. So a little bit of a continuity error there. Not that it matters, but we're just going to add that into the end of the series continuity stuff.
Okay.
And that's all I had,
Okay, so if that's everything, let's move on to our awards segment.
And guess what? He's only one.
Okay, so as always, we have 3 awards to announce this week, and we will start with Plonker of the Week.
You little plonker.
So for Plonker of the Week, we each nominate a plonker, and then we discuss and decide who wins. Dude, who is your Plonker of the Week?
Okay, I put Solly because I feel like I can't give it to Albert. I feel bad giving it to Albert. So my reason for choosing Albert is because...
No, you chose... I thought you said not choosing Albert.
Okay, no, so I put Solly, but it's Albert. I'm nominating Albert because he should have told them he was faking it when they had that meeting and the brewery offered them £2,000. They'd have got the £2,000 if he'd told them in the moment.
But they would have also got the £2,000 if Del had just took the £2,000. I nominated Del, but I put pushed by Solly in brackets.
Okay. Well, if we both said Solly, I guess as a filler, we could say Solly. But yeah.
But Solly doesn't. I mean, I guess because Solly forced them to lie no matter what, because he knew that Albert wasn't as injured as he was. Solly knew, right? Because he basically encouraged them to embellish the story.
He did, but only after Del said that he wanted more money.
Yeah.
So, obviously, Solly would have had motivation to do it because he would have got a cut of it, presumably, as the lawyer. So
I put Del because I feel like Del shouldn't have pushed it. £2,000 is a good amount of money, and they should have took it. And he also he knew that Albert wasn't as injured as he was, but he still knows there was some liability from the brewery, so... He should have just took that $2,000. I don't know.
Yeah, true. Okay, we'll give it to Del because I don't want to give it to Albert for the first episode Albert's in.
Yeah. Plus
properly,
Albert's motivations. I mean, I think if it had been flipped, we would have said Del had good reason, like to lie. Like Albert did what he needed to do to get his granddad his headstone. So get granddad his headstone. Yeah, let's give it to Del then. So Del is Plonker of the Week.
Good thinking. That looked great on the report.
So this week, Heather will award the best line of the episode, and I, Jenny, will be awarding best moment of the episode. So, dude, what have you chosen for best line of the episode? This is a tough one. I have some good lines.
Yeah, I was going to say, I have 3 here that I want to put out there. So my personal favourite is, ain't customers stupid, eh? But that's just because I really relate to that. So the 3 that I want to nominate are, hardly overseas. You want to try walking it, pal? That line's great. The second one that I want to nominate is, have you ever suffered with amnesia before? I can't remember. That's a great line. And then also, Uncle Albert, do I hear you groaning in pain? No. Well, why not? Come on. So those are my 3 nominations. Do you have any others that you want to nominate?
I don't know, dude. I didn't write down a best line. I love all of them. I mean, I like this episode. I think it's got great lines. You know that. I rated it quite high. I love the percussion line.
Maybe, I mean, if I had to say the one that makes me laugh the most out of these 3 is probably the hardly overseas.
Yeah, I do love
You
that
want to try walking it, pal? So yeah, I'll give it to that line. Hardly overseas. You want to try walking it, pal?
Okay.
Okay. And dude, you've nominated best moment, or chosen best moment. So what did you choose?
I chose the courtroom reveal of the fact that Albert has been lying. I think that's the best moment of the episode. Yeah, with the maybe you're the same, Albert Gladstone Trotter, and then just the face, and then the audience loves it too. You can see.
Yeah, the delivery of that line from the prosecution is great. The way he gets more intense and more patronising, it's just brilliant.
Let's try a more recent case then. Yeah. Okay, that's the best moment for me.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I don't have any other honourable mentions, but that one.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay, great. So drink up, we're leaving.
Okay, so that about wraps it up for this week. So join us next week when we'll be discussing Series 4, Episode 4. It's only rock and roll. And until then, Au revoir, listeners. If you like what you hear and want to contact us, you can email us at longlivehookeystreetpodcast@gmail.com. All one word, no spaces. Bonjour.